Okay, should be recording now.
Rich, what were the highlights from your long weekend there, babe?
We had a great weekend away with friends. Went to Vermont, about 2 hours away from where we are right now. And it was kind of rainy, but the last day was sunny. Had a great time. Thank you for asking.
Excellent.
Let's see. There was a way to let people in without having to manage. Oh, okay. There we go.
I think I thought you need to do that when you set up the meeting.
Yeah, I think I did now, so people should be able to join it. Okay, let me.
If not, I'll keep an eye on it.
Thanks. Screen share here. Okay. I imagine everybody can see my screen now. And I will. Why is this not working? Drop this link in the chat as well. So that's the link to the Notion page. Great, let's get started. We have a bunch of stuff to cover today, so we'll get us started. We'll go through these sections. We'll pause after each section for questions, and we'll also have time for questions in the end. Feel free to unmute, raise your hand, throw questions in the chat, etc., etc. Cool. So starting from the top, Farcaster client. Spaces got launched over the last week or so. Started with rolling out to pro users to do the initial round of testing, got a bunch of bugs, which are being fixed right now. They should be rolled out to everybody by the end of this week. So you shouldn't need the pro subscription anymore. We expect to do this for many features as we launch, just allows us to test with a smaller set of users. And then once the initial bugs are fixed, you can expect them to roll out to everybody. That's the first one. Snaps and Cast Composer. This was actually rolled out to everybody. You should be able to make snaps in the Composer. We have landed various improvements since originally launching this. If you find any bugs or have any questions, feel free to reach out. The goal here is to just, if you're in the client, you can just make snaps. It's easy, it's free, and should be pretty quick as well. Cool. Expo 55, this was a major upgrade on our clients. If you're not familiar with what Expo is, it's a build pipeline we use for our React Native clients on Android and iOS. It was on 53 for the longest time, and the previous team had mentioned that it needed to be upgraded to 55. 53 reached its end of life, and the 55 upgrade had a lot of breaking changes, which resulted in a bunch of client bugs that we are still working through. It's sort of expected for any large major change like this, but it's also pretty painful. And we appreciate everybody working through it and filing the bugs and letting us know. You might still be seeing some of this, in which case, please reach out and let us know. One thing you can do on your end is there's two ways we push updates. One is through the native builds that you'll see on the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store. Go to the app page and see if there's a build waiting for you. The search page doesn't always show it, so you actually have to go to the full app page. And after the native build, there's also an over-the-air update, which we call an OTA update. So once you get the latest native, just restart your app a few times, and that should deliver the OTA update. On the settings page on your app, you can, at the bottom of the settings page, you can see what version you're on. If you're filing a bug with us, if you let us know the version and your device, that makes it much easier for us to start diving in. And please let us know when you find bugs, and we are going to continue looking into this. I think it is in a better state, or at least in a more confined state now than it was before, where it was impacting a much larger cohort of people, and we have continued to narrow that down. But we want to get it down to 0. So as you see things, please report, and we'll continue looking into that. Moving on from that, on the home feed, we have a new feature upcoming for translation, where we have noticed a bunch of people, and this has historically been a pretty commonly asked for feature, where if you cast in a different language, your casts just get hidden from people who don't speak that language. And so now your casts will be auto-translated and show to other people, depending on whether they're interested in that content. Again, needs a little bit of tweaking before we can actually start pushing this out, but we're working on it right now. In the meantime, we have had a bunch of spam improvements on bots, scam mini apps. A lot of this should be hidden now. If you look at the protocol data underneath, there's still a lot of incoming such items, but they shouldn't be showing up in the app as much. So if you see them, please report. It's kind of a constant cat and mouse game, but our systems are much better at this than they were a few weeks ago. 2 additional things that we actually expected to launch before this call, but they're still in progress because they turned out to be harder than we initially expected. Kind of quintessential story with new features. One is we had an in-app browser, which we still do, but it requires a lot of improvements. When we originally launched it, it was catching people off guard at the wrong times. So we have some improvements planned for that, and we'll re-enable it with the settings so people can make it the default way to browse or not, depending on what they want to use. That should be out, I would say, a couple of weeks from now, maybe closer to the next community call. The second one is a private wallet. This we have also wanted to have out before today, but there were a bunch of architectural changes that we needed to make in order to make this feasible, where the way the app was previously built was more suited to one wallet inside the app and one wallet seed phrase outside of the custody seed. So to make it such that it can handle multiple wallets with different seed phrases, we've had to do a bunch more work than we initially expected. We are close to the end here, though, so hoping to get that out over the next week or so. And both should be new client features. So let me pause there. Any questions on the client? Okay, we'll keep moving. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and unmute. Developer. So update here, we're going to make Nanar mostly free for everybody, which means the Nanar developer platform. So the starter tier and the growth tier will go away. It will all get consumed by the free tier. And people will only pay for scale or enterprise. The reason we have scale or enterprise is simply because at a certain volume of usage, it's not really sustainable to just have free usage. So at that point, you can sign up for scale. And if you're using any of our enterprise products, which require us to set up custom data pipelines for you or do some kind of custom indexing, those have always been enterprise products and require manual work, and they'll stay on enterprise, and they require you to reach out to us anyway. From a statistical point of view, we have very few handful users on scale and enterprise. So in most cases, you'll just be able to use it for free now. And that should land early June, I think. So something to look forward to there. Any questions on that? Clanker. So Clanker Ecosystem Fund, the first grant should go out closer to the end of this month, tomorrow. Nanish Prof and Adrian are running it from the GM Farcaster side. There will be more details on this tomorrow, but in the meantime, if you have questions, feel free to send them their way. On the Clanker side, generally, we've landed a few improvements across token discovery, search, trending tokens. We have some experiments lined up for new agentic products. I think it's still a couple of weeks away. And so we'll share more on it as we actually get closer to the MVP. There's a bunch of new tools you can build with in the ecosystem now with Venice and stuff. So there's some new things we want to try. And longer term, this is a multi-month project where we are starting to think about what the V5 of the contracts look like, where there's a bunch of new feature asks that have come up as people have used V4. And the V4 contract is a pretty good contract. People are still using that today. But as we think about how to serve those feature requests, we can create a V5 version of the contracts. And that'll require both like a bunch of upfront work and then going through the audit process, which is a pretty long-running thing compared to our general quicker experiments. But hopefully by the end of it, will allow people a lot more customization and flexibility when it comes to launching assets on chain. So more to talk about there as we get into it, and maybe we'll put out some like GitHub requests for comments, etc. But calling it out early as we begin on that multi-month exercise. So let me pause there. Questions? Let me see. So Townlet Clanker is not on mainnet. Yeah, I think it's available on mainnet if you use through the SDK and pay for your own gas fees. But I don't know if Arthur's on the call and can correct me as needed. If not, we'll have to get back to you. But I think it's generally that because mainnet gas fees are higher, we don't pay for mainnet token launches. But you can go launch a token manually on mainnet and pay the gas yourself, and that should be doable.
I did tag Arthur in that thread to answer that, so there should be an answer though.
Okay. Yeah, seems like it is available on mainnet. Okay. Any other Clanker related questions? Okay. Kevin,
I have one, Rish, real quick.
Go ahead. Yep.
I noticed that when you claim fees from certain clankers, like you can now claim the fees like irrespective of whatever the original clanker was. And that seems to be like different behavior than what it used to be. And it's more convenient this way. Like, claim the fees once and then, hey, you get it all. But it was like, for example, like I would go into the detail view of a coin that had no buy or sells recently. And for some reason it had fees claimable. And I'm like, okay, cool. I do that and navigate to a different coin. And there would have been the fee. It would have been the fees for that ticker, for example. And is this a new usability improvement, or is this just something I didn't notice before?
Arthur might be. Manu, do you want to invite Arthur onto this call if he isn't already?
Yeah, let me Slack him. Give me a second.
It sounds like a usability improvement. I'll double check for you and get back. It does seem like though that even if it is a usability improvement, maybe there's some UI we can add on top to make that clearer that you are claiming fees across tokens. So that's good feedback.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, it used to suck going into every single coin trying to get 111. So like when I did it for, just a single click and then it works, I was like, wow, okay, that's cool. Then I drilled into another coin because habit, and then there's no fees left. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if that's how that works now, that's cool.
Yeah, we can make that clear. That's good input. One other note on Clanker, I actually forgot to add that here. But maybe some of you might have noticed yesterday there was a specific sniper who got exploited on Clanker because they didn't use the sniper auction contract correctly. And it was originally put out on the timeline as a possible exploit on Clanker itself. But there are no actual exploits on Clanker. Our documentation pages talk about how to use the Clanker sniper auction contract. And if you use the contract the way it's mentioned in the documentation pages, there's no change and everything there should be good. But yeah, if you have like some kind of bad approvals, like the issue in this case was they were not doing atomic approvals and they just had lagging approvals where somebody else could go and claim the fees from them. They got exploited and lost some fees there. We are still working with them to see how we can make this right for them, but just in case you see something, there's no like Clanker related issue here. Cool. Moving on from Clanker, Kevin, who runs protocol, is out on personal leave right now. We'll be back later this month. So Manan, if you want to run protocol today.
Yeah. Arthur's on in case there was any question.
Arthur, the question was around, actually you can, Faisal, if you want to just put the question in chat and Arthur can respond there and we can pick back up. Cool. Yeah, Manan, you can pick up protocol.
Cool. So on the protocol side, snap chain signers, this is the gasless signers FIP. This is live, so anybody can issue gasless signers now and start using them to broadcast to the protocol. They're also permissioned, so you can grant granular level permissions, not like it doesn't have to be like cast or like a global level. So you can pick and choose like specific granular permissions. We haven't moved Farcaster backend over to using Snapchain signers as of yet. That's in the pipeline. Kevin, who worked on implementing Snapchain signers, once he gets back from leave, he's going to be working on some of this. For the second bullet here, live activity status, that has been implemented and it has been pushed out as a release. But the activation is scheduled for June 4th, so sometime next week. And for the live activity manifest, we're still in review, finalizing some of the details there, and then we can move on to implementation stage there.
One quick thing I'll add on the live activity status and manifest is that this is part of the Spaces rollout that we are doing so that we can kind of have some cross-client compatibility. The first version we expect here is super simple, where another client can read the URL of a live activity and just pop open a web view on their client. And that should allow the user on that client to not have to switch clients and be able to join this experience. And then over time, as we have more such things happen, we can make it finer grained and build it in a way that you can do this natively on the native client. The current FIPs, for them to allow native, they're just strictly complementary. So this is the simplest version out there. Question in the chat, the live activity manifest, how does this work for other clients integrating the spaces that exist on the Nane or Farcaster app today? Does it include the API key needed to connect to the space? I think if you just open the web view, Manan, we'll make that.
So joining will come after the native integration for spaces. So right now, liveness is what is getting pushed first. The next piece is that you can open a web view and you can listen in on a space and then emit that particular, on behalf of that particular user, that they are live. So other clients can demonstrate that, okay, somebody on another client is actively listening. The ability to have speakers from across clients would be next as part of like the permissioning, and we need to figure out a fixed set of APIs that we would want that can allow for alternative clients to kind of like request permission, and it would be authenticated based on which user is trying to raise their hand to speak, and then we'd go according to that. So we'd pass on like an authenticated URL back to the client. So it's like the speaking portion is gonna be the last part of this. It's not gonna be immediate, but like the listening portion will be live right after we kind of like implement 269. So any clients would be able to listen and emit liveness.
And the live activity status is more than just spaces the way it's implemented. So even a simple thing like a green presence dot list to names. So if you want to, like, similar to Slack, if you want to show who is active right now in your client, the live activity status bit can be used for stuff like that. So it's meant to be a more generic bit that you can use across a set of live events. And then you can use the manifest to denote exactly what kind of takeaway you want the client for that bit.
Yeah, as Irish mentioned, like it might be for video streaming use cases as well in the future, but yeah. Okay, I see one more follow-up question here. Why was it pushed into the release before then? Which release, if you can clarify?
Yeah, I mean, this release, the 0.12 release, effectively, like, yeah, sure, it's great that, you know, other clients can also use this feature, but like if the primary publisher of these messages right now has full support of being able to actually speak in them, then other clients are second-class citizens. Like, why was this pushed into the protocol so soon?
I mean, we could have, I guess, waited, or you're free to not use these features if you're going to wait for the speaker activation. But it's to us, it seemed better where you can join as a listener as opposed to nothing. And so we just staggered it out. So nothing to listening to joining as a speaker. If you don't want to add it to your client to have them listen in and you would rather wait for speaker, you're welcome to wait. Cool. Manan, you want to cover the rest?
Yeah, there's a few questions. Maybe I'll wait until we get to Q&A. All right, Snapchain improvements. I'll rush through this. There were some changes as we were working on the Snapchain signers piece, where we needed to tune RocksDB to like across the common code path. So we ended up doing that. On our end, as we operated nodes on our end, we had to consolidate some of the deploy pipeline across both like Merkle as well as like Nanar nodes that we were running. So consolidated that alongside with observability. So before it was scattered across Grafana and Datadog, but now we've consolidated to Grafana. There's also some consensus visibility tooling that we had to add in order to debug some issues that we were having on mainnet. The new tooling is live on testnet. It'll get deployed to mainnet pretty soon. And then again, like as part of this, like on call, where like we have to operate these nodes. The volume of logs that Snapchain originally had was like just really hard to find any signal. So we had to tune it to a point where like it's actually parsable and we can find the appropriate things to be able to act fast. And then there's one planned piece around moving to the actively maintained Malachite fork instead of the older one. This is still planned in terms of like prioritization, might be towards the end of next month where we end up picking it up, given that there's a bunch of other things that are in flight, and Kevin's still coming back from leave later this week. Yeah, so that covers most of the improvements there. There's also a request out open to others for running additional Snapchain validators. We are focused on like operators that might be wanting to run this in a new geo, because that's the one key piece that we want to be testing out right now. And we will be continuing with our test for like operating a validator setup that is in Mumbai for testnet. And for if we can establish that on testnet, we are able to run that for a sustained amount of time without disruptions, then we can work with these new validator operators to kind of like deploy it on mainnet in the new geos. So that's the approach that we're taking there. The last bullet is mainly a plug about other Snapchain issues that are documented there. If anybody wants to be contributing, that would be the first spot.
Cool. Questions? Yep, Luis.
Hi, Rich. Hi, Manan. I would like to ask something. What is your incentive for building a protocol as Nanar?
Our app works on the protocol, and we expect to build the company around an open source protocol, and that's why we took this up.
So right now, your main focus is on client, is on protocol. how do you intend to make money out of this?
Our main focus areas are what we just covered on the call. And you can see what the focus is across client and protocol. It's unclear how we make money out of this. I think it was unclear even before when Marco was working on it. So I think we'll have to gain clarity over time. I think there's not been a lot of revenue positive outcomes here, and we'll have to go figure that out. Open to ideas.
And last question before I go, it's did you made more revenue before you owned Farcaster, the client and the protocol, or now that you're part of the whole thing?
From Neinar Pro products, you mean? Oh, definitely made way more before, when Farcaster was on a much higher note during the 2024 time, right? And when Coinbase was using Farcaster, et cetera. And we are about to make even less now that we are going to make Neinar developer products free. So yeah, definitely making less revenue now.
So wait, so you're making free what was paid before, and why are you making it free? So where the money comes from, or what's the incentive there, right?
We are a venture-backed company. We have many years of runway.
That means like you have money to spare, right?
Correct. I mean, I
We
don't
also-
know what the questions are moving towards. These are a series of questions. Feel free to send me these questions in chat or separately. But also want to make sure we have questions from other people in the last few minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, JD.
Thanks, Rich. A little question and a larger underlying question. You started off talking about client bug report flows. I wonder, do you all have enough volume of inbound bug reports that it's worth considering creating a sort of a flow built into the client that pre-populates device fingerprint and build number and those sorts of things, just so that you are able to streamline the end
That's a good idea.
user's ability to say, I'm not having a good experience and I need to give you as much information as possible as quickly as possible, because the longer it takes me, the less likely I am to report it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that. Thank you.
The larger question I've appreciated these calls, that you all have picked up this particular torch. I wonder, time is sort of a pressing thing for a lot of folks, even though it's it's more existential for you than it is for any of us. I wonder if, as you go forward, organizing these conversations around, here are the things we're going to deploy within the next 7 days. Here are the things that are going to deploy in the next 30 days. Here are the things that we're working on over the next 90 days, the next 120, right? Because there's been plenty of conversation in the FC Union call, to name just one, around what the validator node process looks like, right? And when and where you all are in that process. And so it's good to hear that you're moving forward with a test, but I guess structuring this call in a way such that somebody who's listening understands what expectations they ought to have of you and Manon and the team on what sort of timescale might be worthwhile, because you have your internal set of priorities in order to make the business successful as well as to make the protocol successful. But those of us who are on the outside, all we can really judge is how many days this has been since, insert my personal favorite priority has seen any spotlight in a forum like this.
Yeah, good question. I think for validators specifically, a good end of the year goal would be where Neinar doesn't run the majority number of validators. And as part of that, we want to deploy validators in different geos. We want to have different parties deploy validators. And by the time we are through that process over the next, let's say, 6 months, we want to be at a point where 50% or more of the validator operators on Snapchain are not Neinar. And that would be a good outcome. That's kind of what we are shooting for. Once we have that, then we can add on other kinds of validator-related goals. But not having us as the majority seems like a good goal to us at the time.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Cool. Eggman.
Hey, Rish. Apologies again for going without a webcam, but it's about 32 degrees over here at the moment, so I am at my desk in my boxers, and I don't think anybody needs that in their life right now. But,
Yeah.
hey, man. So, yeah, I'm just kind of following on from yesterday with that Git conversation that I was running through on it. So, look, I've already said myself that I do understand the need to kind of just focus more on growth and stability right now. But I did think it was a little, I guess, short-sighted to, just say we look at it in 6 to 12 months rather than kind of, have an acceptance criteria and stuff like that. So I know we're saying, we want to get far more people running validators and stuff like that. Do you think that that's something where, it's going to have to be stock snap chain for somebody to actually run that validator? Or do you think, in the case of, say, Hypersnap, which, I do understand the risk of having, something extra kind of running on top of it, or having, any sort of stuff there that requires more than just saying, yeah, it's a validator. But do you think that that's something that will be kind of possible over the next, say 6 to 12 months, or is there any kind of acceptance criteria you'd have in mind for it? Like, just for me, it's more seeing, you've got very talented developers in, Cassie and Flex and other people kind of supporting, wanting to, have Hypersnap running with things as well, and having this kind of, I guess, more cohesive kind of, unification of communities where, you can do your own thing, but also be part of what we call, like, the main Farcaster family, etc. Like, what are kind of your thoughts around that stuff? Do you think it's something that, there could be acceptance criteria kind of laid out for in the near future, or is it something that is just kind of not, directly on the roadmap right now?
Yeah, good question. And maybe we'll have to add more detail as we go, but I'll try to do my best to answer here. And then Manan, feel free to chime in as well. So I think at a high level, we are just trying to separate variables. We are trying to separate variables of like, hey, can we have the block time sync across far enough geographies? That's the first variable that we are looking at. Then the variable we are looking at is how stable is the network when we are at less than 50% of the validator operators. And then we can look at maybe one of the variables being like node client diversity, where you can have Snapchain as one node client and you can have other node clients as part of it. It seems a little backwards to me to look at node client diversity before, let's say, NANR is majority, where I think the decentralization would be much better off if we removed ourselves from being the majority, and then we can keep working through these other variables. And so in terms of timeline, I think a high-level timeline would be that, hey, this year is about removing ourselves from the majority, and then next year we can start looking at node clients diversity. Or any of the other variables that people might bring up in the meantime. And I think it's reasonable, like we are working on this from a multi-year perspective, and there's a lot of work to do. And I don't think there's a real reason to like shove everything into the same month or same set of months. And so if we just keep making progress through this, I think we can all land in the right place. Manan, feel free to chime in if I missed something.
No, I think that's on point.
Yeah, I appreciate the candidness of it as well. Like, I know it's obviously a difficult thing to run into, and as I said yesterday, I think this is something that ideally should have been done when it was Merkel with a very large amount of money and able to kind of jump into this stuff. So I appreciate you're not being put in the most wonderful position to have to kind of eye out how to do all of this stuff. So when it does come to running validators, have you had any thoughts of, what could incentivize users to actually run them? Now, I'm not saying tokens or anything like that, but what I've found kind of over the past couple of years is you'll get people, running an Ethereum node. It's very hard to get them to run kind of anything else unless they're essentially being told you'll get something that can be exchanged for money on it. And I guess that's kind of where I look at Hypersnap again, in that they have a pretty, they have their own token and stuff like that. So it's possible to have those validator rewards running out of it. but I also understand that that's, you know, it would be an A side to running an actual, you know, just a standard Snap validator. So have you had any kind of thoughts around that on, do you think that these incentives should be kind of third party, as in, you know, stuff like HyperSnap would have their own incentives that kind of sit on top of it? Or do you think there is something that would come in kind of more direct just on SnapChain when it comes to, you know, running a validator for the average everyday person?
Yeah. Happy to talk to both of them. I'll also address some of the things in the chat. I will note, by the way, we were 6 minutes over. I'm happy to stay on, but anybody who wanted to jump at the 30-minute, feel free to leave. For token incentives, I think we generally have more lenient approach to tokens than what Dan and Merkle might have had, partly simply because we are in a better regulatory framework now. And presumably it'll only get better in the US House and Senate. That said, we don't think that like right now, immediately is the time where we will launch a token to incentivize node operators. We first have to get to the point where you can kind of add and remove nodes or even validators in a way that keeps the network stable. We are frankly not there right now. Like we have to be able to get to a point where we are not the majority, where people can like come in, add validators, remove validators, and the network stays healthy. We expect to get there. And as we get closer to that I think is a good time to then think about incentives and think about how like running a validator and helping secure the network actually gives people something back in return. So I don't think that would be a this year thing. Maybe second half of next year thing, but incentives would definitely be like we would look at client diversity before we would look at like token incentives maybe, and that's something to be figured out in 2027. There was the other question you had about how the incentives sit on top. I don't think I can speak to how any other incentives that have been launched in the space. But if running a Farcaster...
Oh yeah, it's I was more saying like, you know, would you look to incentivize yourself, or would it be more reliant on, you know, third party systems like HyperSnap to offer an incentive on top? So you're saying that you will be looking to kind of, you know, roll out your own in-house incentives that will kind of come with running.
Yeah, I think that would make sense if everything goes right. And yeah, I think we are in a better environment now. I see the comment about Elizabeth Warren, and yeah, that can't speak to her, but as long as we're in a better environment, I think it would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, sorry, I know you are running over. I just want to say, like, you know, thanks for your time. I know this stuff is difficult to kind of keep track on with so much happening all at once. I appreciate that, you know, we're speaking candidly about it as well. I would love to see a little bit more of, I'm not going to say, you know, throw a bone to the decentralization aspect of it, because it is very important in the long term, I do believe. But I would like to see maybe a little more direct work on that side, or even just something like those, you know, that acceptance criteria, stuff like that, where there's kind of, you know, a game plan in place. Because my fear would just more be that, you know, we have a lot of really good talent right now, and I would hate to see us really fragment into two different networks because of what's really, I think, you know, disagreements that can easily be solved with, you know, sitting down and actually chatting about things. And that's not saying that it's all from, you know, 100%, you know, Nanar have to do this or anything like that. I think there's a middle ground for everyone here that we could sit down, say what the acceptance criteria are. And look, I think we're all really aimed towards the same goal. It's just, you know, timeframes come into it. And that's when, you know, tempers can flare, and as you know yourself, generally talking about things directly through, you know, GitHub commits and stuff like that, it's a lot different than sitting down and actually chatting with someone. But yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing, Rish, and yeah, looking forward to seeing more on it.
Cool. Thanks, Eggman. Appreciate it. Agree with a lot of the things here, and I think Monan did put out like a cast about acceptance criteria yesterday. We'll make it more formal in the Farcaster updates channel maybe, but I think the main goal for this year, just so that we are all on the same page on this call, is to have Nanar as the non-majority runner, and that's what we are going to shoot towards. Cassie, I saw your earlier comments. And thank you for letting us know it's not running SnapChain. Like, you know, we try to be as honest and upfront as we can, and we appreciate other people doing the same. And so I appreciate you doing that. The previous things about direct cast and whatnot, I can't really speak to that. But we are working on this, and we are here live talking about it, so you can hold us accountable, and everybody on this call can hold us accountable. And we are going to try and do what we said, which is land validators in different geos and try to be the non-majority runner by the end of the year. And after that, we can look at other ways to enhance diversity. And by diversity, I mean node client diversity and other ways of decentralization. In the meantime, if you did want to run a Snapchain node, we'd be happy to look into that. Any other questions?
Can I also add with the incentivizing validators? It's something that we're talking about what pro can look like in the future too. That's, been in the conversation around, a big part of not bringing pro back right away is where does the money go and what does that money do to benefit the community? And that's still a problem we have to solve.
Cool, thank you. Luis, I see a hand up.
Yeah, I want to know if it's possible to have a community call for everyone, not only devs, because I think there is a lot of things that are need to be addressed around how Neinar is managing Farcaster and how the community feels about decentralization. And
This is a call for non-developers, for what it's worth. You should invite whoever you want to this call. There's many people on this call who are not developers, and we are happy to address that here.
no, but I'm saying I'm just saying because you seem like too you're hard, you're like you need to go to the bathroom or something. I don't know if you have something to do now, or you just had the 30-minute times, or I'm not sure, Rich, or maybe too much caffeine. I don't know, but you seem like
Is there
accelerated.
a question? We are 15 minutes over.
No.
I'm gonna.
No. Yeah,
Okay,
that's my question. That's my question. If we can have another time when we can talk everyone without 30-minute limit restraint.
We can increase the next one to 45 minutes. There won't be a call that is a separate call from this call. This is the call. You can invite them here.
We actually
Cassie,
used to host these for an hour, but they didn't last an hour, and so we
Yeah.
shortened it to
Oh,
30
okay.
minutes. So
Yeah,
we're
I'm
happy
happy
to
to extend it
them.
next time. Cassie,
And-
we can move over to you
And when is the next one?
next month.
They're
Oh.
monthly. If you look
Oh,
at the link that the Farcaster account casted out, there's a calendar invite on there that'll put it on your calendar recurring. Because they're just
So there's
scheduled
no
once a month.
possibility of having next week another meeting.
That is correct. Cassie.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the thing that I had said. Like, yeah, I get it. It's not stock Snapchain. But you did iterate what seems to be like a not formalized, but at least some kind of acceptance criteria that, if people are wanting to add another validator that is running Snapchain, then they'd start on testnet, validate that prove that it's not, disruptive to the network, that blocks are being properly formed and everyone's keeping consensus. If that's true for stock Snapchain, what's the difference between a node that speaks Snapchain all the same?
Yeah, so there's it just introduces multiple variables for us to account for right now. Right now we're working on problems that will be helping us decentralize from a geo standpoint. So from a network and latency standpoint, how blocks get propagated, how messages get propagated, and so on. So we're working essentially at the networking layer. And then if we introduce another variable into the mix, now we're working with consensus problems and debugging those issues, trying to push those out. It's not ideal for us to be working on multiple problems all at once, which is why we have a roadmap Yeah.
Sure, I get where you're coming from about that, but I literally built the network that you're talking about here, so I am qualified to speak about it. I do understand what your concerns are, and what I'm saying is we meet the bar on that. So if there's no difference in terms of how it interacts at the consensus layer, because there is no difference on how it interacts at the consensus layer, I just don't understand this resistance and hesitation. Like,
so if there is no difference, then like my question to you would be that why the insistence on running a hypersnap validator? Why not run a snap chain validator and then direct peer it with a hypersnap node?
yeah, that's actually pretty simple. The fact is, and the reason why Hypersnap was created.
Yeah, so
in the first place,
we'd be fine with that approach if we want to take that approach. The main criteria is that this has to be operated in a different geo, it has to be non-linear, and it has to be running Snapchain, the additional validator runners that we're looking for.
yeah, that doesn't actually answer the question though. That's just railroading what I was saying. Like the reality is that it speaks Snapchain, and so like the hesitance isn't making sense from a like development standpoint.
In terms of it speaks Snapchain, like it definitely lags behind in terms of like development. Like, we have to merge in code from time to time. Even the Hypersnap repo, I don't see CI tests running the consensus tests that are baked in on Snapchain. Like I don't see.
We don't use GitHub Actions because to do that it costs money, and we're a community team. We're not a venture-backed company.
Right. Regardless, like there's no evidence that has been presented as part of this that there's as much testing behind this. Hypersnap has been running in a testnet network. Like there's no empirical evidence of this. And
the
so
absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We are running these nodes already, and at least as a
validator node is very different from a reader node. You can't say that you're running Hypersnap nodes and just say that, oh, I'm eligible for a validator.
That's not what I was saying.
Validator, like even if it's in testnet, to be able to like say that, okay, it has been running as a validator, participating in consensus and so on. It's very different.
Well, okay, so if you can't present like qualifying criteria for testnet inclusion outside of it must be running Snapchain, then there's no way to build up the evidence that you're asking for.
No, I mean, do you have this running in a testnet environment? Like we can inspect that. It doesn't mean that there needs to be like, okay, we are the only ones running a testnet, and like you get added to that testnet. That's not the blocker here.
Yeah,
I have not heard of like a Hypersnap testnet with Hypersnap validator nodes.
Yeah, we're happy to set one up. It's just simply that you shut us down instead of actually offering that opportunity.
The main point here is that like because of the fact that we have been running this network for since the acquisition, like we are taking on the responsibility of making sure that whatever is getting added is right. If you are fine taking on the responsibility of like running the testnet, then yes, we'd be happy to entertain that as well.
Great, happy to work with you.
Sure. So yeah, you can set up the testnet. If you can share the URL where we can peer with that testnet, figure out the health in terms of like blocks getting generated, etc. That'll just help like kind of like provide more evidence about Hypersnap operating as a validator.
Sounds good.
Cool. I have a higher level question here. And usually I'm the one answering questions, so hopefully a question from me will get entertained, which is the validator discussion we had, where not adding this Hypersnap validator is what created the fork. And now there's a fork There's a token on that fork. The fork is running validators. Great. Why are we still talking about this in the sense that you already forked, right? What's the, like, what we have a fork, we have tokens on that fork, people are running that fork, there's clients on that fork. As far as I can tell, things are working as you want. Why are we spending so much time now adding that fork back over to this? Like, just there's the
I'll
fork.
answer that. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, so I'll answer that.
For
in
the
three-
community, maybe?
I'll answer it in 3 parts. It's pretty straightforward. The first is Hypersnap was created because Snapchain itself does not support clients. Like you have to build backend indexers, you have to build a lot of tooling just to make a functional client to work or use one of your paid services. And so Hypersnap's very first thing that it changed, the only thing different at the time when the PR was first proposed in the first place, was that it has its own indexing and APIs possible for clients to build on top of it directly instead of having to build their own backend. That was the first thing.
But then why does Quorum use our Merkle back or previously Merkle current Farcaster backend APIs instead of Hypersnap APIs?
It uses both, and it uses both because in order to actually import the warplet, you have to use your APIs to obtain it. The second piece to this is because DMs.
But it's not.
It uses it for way more than just the
Yeah,
work.
it uses our signers, it uses DMs, it uses Warplet.
All the casts that are coming out of Quorum,
like,
are coming
which
through.
again, we don't mind. We have obviously had those access up there. We haven't done anything to stop it. We are making Nanar free. But if it uses Farcaster client APIs, while your goal for building Hypersnap is for Hypersnap to have APIs, why doesn't it use Hypersnap APIs?
Because there are things that the Hypersnap APIs can't provide. Again, this comes down to supporting direct casts, which are on the back
But
end.
it doesn't use them
It
for
is not just
signers.
direct casts.
Like,
it's feed,
signers are
it's
available for
cast
everybody. Like,
citation.
Okay, you're like, I need to actually be able to answer your question.
sorry, go ahead.
The other thing is that Quorum is a privacy-focused API. And so a user that is using its own signer is essentially saying, hey, I'm using a privacy-focused client. And as you're aware, you have users on Farcaster that are based in countries like Iran, where searching for privacy technology can actually put you in serious life or death danger. So our purpose of using the APIs is simply to hide the fact that it is Quorum. However, and this is the key point, we are actually extending support so that we can have our own signer and use the Hypersnap APIs directly when the user chooses to do so. But the sole point is privacy preservation. It's to avoid the problem of users being put in danger. As the previous NSA chief said, we use metadata to kill people.
Okay. So just so it's understood where what I'm seeing here, and maybe some of what you said right now clarifies that, but we have a disagreement over which there was a fork, which is great. Like, I still think people should fork and run their own experiments, and timelines won't match, so go run your experiments. We have a fork, we have a token on that fork. There's the reason to fork was apparently to create new APIs, but the client on that fork doesn't actually use the APIs. It uses the previous client's API, at least for a bunch of things. And now we are trying to merge that fork back, which is like a pretty confusing thing. Like, it's not clear why all of this was needed if we just had to just like add a validator in a few months' time.
So the purpose is to help grow Farcaster together. Like, to answer your point of why is there a fork, simply put, you told me to do it.
Right. So just fork. Like, why are we spending time talking about this?
So we're talking about this because I thought that our goal here is to help grow Farcaster. And part of that means that like other developers are going to come to the table with other options. And right now, including on this call, not only is it not being entertained, I'm explicitly being interrupted half the time I'm trying to explain it.
The interruptions are unfortunate, shouldn't have happened. Sorry about that. I'm not fully, like, my understanding is the fork creates another option, which we are pro. The option creates a different timeline, which we are pro, because we are inevitably not going to be able to accommodate every request or timeline. In which case, there should exist two options, like, and people can pick.
Why can't
We're
they-
still happy to. Sorry, go ahead. I wasn't interrupting this time, by the way. But go ahead.
Why can't they actually work together? Like, what's the hesitancy towards actually, having equal footing as participants on the network? If the goal is to decentralize eventually, like, you have a team that's like fiercely devoted to making that a reality.
There's no hesitancy. It's just a matter of timeline. Like, if all was needed was add a validator, we could have just waited a bit and added a validator. But if we have forked, it seems to me like if you're going to add that, like, we are having all of this discussion for not much has really happened. We've just spent a lot of time talking about it.
I beg to differ about not a lot has happened. Like, there's a huge amount of activity on the repo, and there's a huge amount of activity on the developer side. There's 4 different clients using these APIs now.
Great. In which case, they should just use the fork. Like, just go do things. Like, I just don't understand the point of discussing it so much.
I know the point for discussing this. And the point is that we should have one timeline because we're a small community and we should work together because we don't want to separate people, right? We don't want that. We want to actually have more tools so people can express themselves better into different aspects. So if one person has one kind of node and another has another kind of node, they should be compatible so we don't have 2 timelines, 2 clients. And so what I personally is doing, I think it's making more tools accessible to, like, it's doing another thing, right? It's doing.
I understand. Sorry for interrupting. We just have to like move on, and I have to end in 3 minutes. I'm happy to. One, I don't think we'll ever all be on the same page about, hey, this is the timeline. Like, that's just not realistic. The timeline we put forward on this call is the timeline we have towards decentralization efforts we are making. Monan talked about testnet and Hypersnap setting up a testnet, which we are happy to look at. And if things go well, maybe we can accommodate in that timeline. The point I was making is there has been a lot of discussion about, hey, what you're doing as Farcaster and ANR team is not something that we are looking for. So we're going to go do something different, which you went and did something different, in which case keep doing something different. Like, I don't want to spend hours every week thinking about, hey, they did something different. Now we have to add it. Now we have to remove it. Now we have to add it. Like, the dance doesn't make sense to me.
But that's
So
totally-
but that's the main point of making community, right? This is a social platform. You have to keep the community. Yes, you have to build the protocol and everything behind, but at the same time, you have to hear the community, right? Otherwise, what's the point of making a social network?
Right. We are hearing, and clearly there's some differences. And what I'm saying is, we might not settle those differences. Like, there might not be a way to settle them. Like the timeline we proposed, if you don't prefer that timeline, that's fine. Have a different timeline with what you've built. And that optionality is good. And there's some differences we can settle and some we can't. And for differences we can't settle, optionality is good, and you should go use that timeline. And that's that. Emma, if you want to unmute, and then I have to end.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the intention is not to make people pick a side in any way. And if you want, you're saying go do the fork and maybe come back in 6 months. And maybe then we'll be in a place. It's really just the like internal capacity of our team can't take that on right now. But we're happy to like lay out the roadmap for how to get there in a very transparent way.
And that's a reasonable take, but I mean, this again comes down to whether or not we're compatible. Because if we're compatible, then there's no difference operationally. But I get it. I've said
in which case we didn't need the fork.
You're telling me to fork off, so I got it.
But anyway,
No. I would push back a little bit there. That like there was no fork off. I understand that
I mean, you already
became
shared
the
the
narrative
screenshots of the DM I sent. There was no fork off. But anyway, I have to end.
I
Apologies,
think that
everybody.
that's important, Rish.
Yeah, Cassie, feel free to share the same DM screenshot again. I haven't said those words, and
No, I'm not saying
always
you
make-
literally said fork off.
I
You
think
told
it's
me-
important to talk about this.
We have spent enough time on this, and I think we have made our point clear. Cassie, feel free to send us your testnet details. And otherwise, if the 6-month timeline doesn't work for folks, there is another option available, which I think is good for everybody involved. I don't think it's worth anybody's time spending time talking about this week over week. Cool. Thank you.
Why not?
I'm going to hang up.
What?
All right, I'm spinning
I
up the
don't-
after party on Farcaster Spaces. You
But
know
what-
it.
Good work, Trizzle. Do it.
Wait. What happens? Why they have to quit the call like this?
No,
Why they
to
have
be
to-
fair, like I understand wanting the call to go on longer and stuff, but you can't, like, I mean, there was a set time that they had and it was half an hour. We knew that before we came in, and they stayed an hour, which I thought was, you know, pretty nice to them. So I wouldn't sit here and kind of give them grief for not staying on longer, because this seems like this is easily, you know, probably the most kind of complicated situation we have right now, where nobody wants there to actually be two diverging clients or for the user base to be split or anything like that. And I'm sure Rich does not want that to happen either. Just that this conversation, I guess, has gone on for a while now. And I don't think it would have been solved if we sat here for, you know, another hour or something like that. I think this is something where perhaps we have to kind of, you know, leave a bit of time pass, see how things actually go with it, see if there's any kind of changes around how, you know, all of this stuff is kind of unfolding at the moment. But I wouldn't try and force them to, you know, just sit on a call for as long as possible, like that kind of stuff.
I agree with that completely. I think the key issue is just trying to get to an answer. And the answer, despite every attempt at arguing with some kind of lack of evidence or some evidence, that it's just a refusal to listen to, one, that evidence doesn't exist, and two, that we're not given an opportunity to even give them the evidence they want. It's simple as.
How can you give
But I think-
evidence on something that you cannot run? Like, if you cannot
Exactly.
run a validator, you cannot have evidence of it working. Like, if you shut down the door before you even enter the site, like,
Well, that's where
So-
testnet comes in. So I feel like we kind of answered that, right? I hope. I think that that's a great solution, to run it on testnet, get the evidence that both
and what is
sides want.
testnet?
I'll let Cassie answer that.
Yeah, testnet
Yeah.
exists. It's just a few nodes that Nanar runs to validate their changes before it goes out onto mainnet, and it's a perfectly reasonable strategy. Every network does it. Ethereum does it. It's normal. The thing that I took pause with until this very call, there was not even an offer to try the testnet approach to prove that we do meet that bar. So I mean, good news on that, but like at the same time, that's a very misleading thing to act like that was a presented opportunity
Yeah.
before, because it was not.
But I wonder why there hasn't been any video calls or more talks about all of this, because this is really important. I feel like Farcaster is such a small place for it to split. It's such a bad thing for Farcaster if we split. So,
Louis, I would say that the unfortunate reality is that every 30 minutes that gets spent in dialogue is 30 minutes that doesn't get spent on doing the work of building a durable protocol that'll be here in 20 years. So
Don't code while
Like
you're on the call.
yeah, no, like I am, right? Of course, Kathy, but like I'm not Nanar. I'm not living on the borrowed investment of my investors. I'm not responsible. I'm responsible for being sort of an earnest user and supporter of the thing. And in a similar way that I would say Peachy is, and Peachy has run, you know, a forum for conversations very similar to this one for, you know, more than 12 months at this point, right? So I guess if the thing you're looking for, Luis, is to get dialogue where the community can get a better understanding about what its goals are, then we have all the tools in the world at our disposal to do that. If the ask is to make sure that the two leaders of a very small team are always present in those conversations, I would just encourage you to like temper your expectations, because they've got the same number of hours in the day that any of us have, and arguably have more skin in the game, and that's going to influence how they choose to spend that time.
I would also add that you can find us anytime on Farcaster. Like, these discussions are great to happen on the feed, where they're not, even this is a closed discussion where only X number of people could participate. And yes, it's recorded and we can put it out there. But like, the
totally
more
true,
that we
Emma,
have these big
sorry.
discussions. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Cassie's point is well taken, right? In all the conversation on the feed,
Absolutely.
the offer to run a testnet experiment did not come up until there was this dialogue, right? So there is utility in
100%.
sort of changing. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
Absolutely. And that's part of like what I see as my position, where I say this with so much love, but all of you devs are not fantastic communicators. And when we all put you in a room together, sometimes we need more people in the room to be able to make these things happen. And I think we're excited that that can happen. I said it to the Merkle team. I said it to the Nanar team. I will say it always, and not just in tech, but I think it's a problem that I see here that I'm happy to be like the intermediary to move everything forward.
Yeah, I'd agree on that one. I mean, I've literally had people quit because I can't talk like a human most of the fucking time. Not intended, but I know we can come off very blunt, especially when we're having conversations about, what we think is best for a protocol that we all obviously care about a lot. And to kind of follow on that, sorry, is it Louis or Lewis?
Yeah, Luis.
Lewis. Perfect. So yeah, to follow
Or
on that.
Felirami.
Sorry, say again.
Felirami. Luis or Felirami?
I'm going to stick with Luis because I can pronounce that roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all do have, as I said earlier, that fear of, a split in the community and stuff like that. But I think what kind of runs to our advantage here is that I think everybody has a deep vested, love for the protocol that we currently have and everybody that's on it. And I think that, there may be small fractures here or there, but I think in like 1 year or 2 years time, then hopefully, touch wood as I say this, that we will all still be here and the protocol itself will be in, a much better position and a much more decentralized position. And I do understand that these kind of, heated discussions, they do need to happen, even though they are uncomfortable for, everybody involved. They do have to happen because you need to kind of push forward what is important for the actual, community and user base. I think that this is why we've kind of, I think it's why, we've seen kind of heads bash on this one, in that everybody wants the best for the network. But, we have different levels of importance that we place on this. And as JD was saying, Nanar have a lot of skin in the game right now. And look, I understand the risks of, I don't think there would be anything on, Hypersnap that Cassie has built or even looked over as, she's obviously extremely intelligent. But I'm just trying to put myself in Nanar's boots and say, even if somebody, incredible in my community came to me and there was, a possibility of something that they run having, basically like falling out of lockstep or anything like that, or causing any protocol delays, especially when there's so few validators right now. And that's obviously another issue in itself that, hopefully we will see resolved this year. But I can understand the risk and apprehension. My main issue, like I said, was that there was no acceptance criteria laid out. There was no testnet offered. And to me, that it just felt kind of pointed. And we shouldn't be pointed with somebody who's clearly just trying to, improve the protocol for everyone. And I'm glad that we've gotten that, there has now been an offer of testnet on it. And yeah, hopefully that is the start of something much better. And we will start seeing this stuff come to more fruition through it. But I do think, nobody wants to develop anything or deploy anything that will damage the network or, cause a fracture. I think we all want the best possible network. And again, like I said, 100 times, I think a lot of this falls back on Merkel in that they had the resourcing to essentially stock the place up on engineers, and they kind of played much more cautiously, which again, I understand. I mean, it's not like it was their money to just spend willy-nilly. So, they saw the risk reward on it and they didn't run down a path that I personally would have wished they would have. But it's put us in a more difficult situation now where we're finding ourselves more centralized than we'd like to be. I do think, though, they do want to see that decentralized network come back and make sure that they don't fracture any user base. Sorry, JD, go ahead, man.
All right, man. Thank you. Cassie, I had a question for you. If their stated goal is by the end of the year to get to geographic diversity of nodes and maintain a healthy network by whatever their definitions are, what's your point of view on how happy does that make you / how compatible is the work that you're doing on HyperSnap with regard to that timeline? I think is the important point I'm getting at here, right? Like,
Well,
is there a sense of urgency that you feel that makes a 6-month timeline feel sort of incompatible with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty simple thing. It's the nature of the beast. I've worked at VC funded companies my entire career until I stopped working for them altogether. And the thing is with venture-backed timelines is venture-backed companies is they have venture-backed timelines. And so when I hear a venture-backed company say 6 to 12 months to get to even the start of a new decision, realistically, it's never actually happened. Like 6 to 12 months is essentially saying no different than it's just not going to happen at all. And the reason why I feel that way is because, again, Farcaster, Merkel was, they were given $180 million, but their priorities stayed very narrow, and anything that required significant engineering effort to ship was deprioritized in favor of things that could directly be measured and moves the needle one way or another in terms of user growth. And again, that's fair. That's a reasonable thing to expect out of a company. But the realization is that if every company acts this way, there's no reason to expect this will be any different for Nanar. That said, yeah, sure. If they really do want to revisit this in 6 to 12 months, good, we can do that. But the fact is that 6 to 12 months, even on decentralized protocol timeframes, is essentially no different than saying it won't happen at all.
I think one important point is that we are competing. So Farcaster is a small community that's shrinking every day. Every day is shrinking. Every day, people are not coming back, etc. Also, we're competing against TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc., etc. Right? So, if a startup with VC backup cannot work fast enough with the community to grow, then it will not grow at the pace that other companies with a lot of more money will. Have you seen TikTok? Have you seen how huge Instagram is? And for X.
But we also don't want to be
next thing.
TikTok, and we don't want to be X.
So what do you want to be?
Farcaster.
That's the thing. And but at the same time, what is Farcaster? Who is it for? We're getting so the thing is shrinking. The community is abandoning Farcaster. Have you seen the Reddit posts about Farcaster? Have you seen the comments it gets? I have been to many, many, many events, and a lot of people tell me, "Oh, you're on Farcaster." Yeah, I remember back in the day when Degen was the main thing, and there was a token, and you could get paid, and blah blah blah. That's the thing so attention is the market here. Social.
Yeah, I would push back on that too. Of that, we are abundantly aware of the narrative because people talk about it on Farcaster all the time. I think the priority we've had our hands on the protocol for 2 months now, and we focused mainly internally on making the community a good place to be, making the app work, making these things. good again, I guess, after the, trading meta sharp right turn. It took a good amount of work to get where we are now. And it's not really marketable externally if you come onto Farcaster and everyone's talking about what a shitty place Farcaster is. And so there was a lot of internal work that needed to happen before we can even think about marketing it.
So that proves the thing. Community first.
Lewis,
Community first.
you're kind of dooming a little bit. Like, I know it's a rough patch right now for Farcaster, but just dooming on it isn't going to help us. I mean, we definitely don't want to be. We can't even compare ourselves to TikTok. It's a totally different media platform. Same as Instagram, totally different again. X maybe a little bit closer, but I still think it's different enough to be, in its own category. For a start, I can log on to Farcaster and I just won't get flattened with, political engagement bait and stuff like that. We'll see a little, but not as much. But I think everything that we're doing right now is trying to improve the network and turn it into, what all of us want it to be. Like the work that Cassie's doing on Hypersnap, that's, ultimately improving the network and making it into a place that we all want to be, and hopefully bring in much more people on top of it as well. But
Eggman, one question for you. Have you onboarded someone to Farcaster, like in person?
Yeah, I have my partner, because she wants to play Frindle.
And
so
other than your partner, like some stranger people, because I have, and it's
friends
terrible.
on TT. No, I know.
And
Yeah,
we know
so
that. That's exactly what I'm
No,
saying,
it's
Luis.
terrible.
So
It's terrible.
that's exactly what I'm
way-
saying. Is like those are the
Like
things that we need to
Yeah.
work on before marketing it.
I want to hear from Kenny. He's the first Farcaster user I met, URL, and then
Yeah,
IRL.
go.
Oh yeah, thank you all. I love this angle of Farcaster isn't TikTok, Farcaster
Yeah.
isn't Instagram. I think everybody on this call agrees with that point. But the fundamental product of Farcaster is an algo feed. Like we have to recognize this. If somebody logs on, it's a home feed. It's an algorithmic feed, which is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook coded. Right. So obviously this is something I've been drumming for a very long time, but until we get away from this, that's what this app is. I know it's funny, but this is the reality of the product. The product is algo coded. It's not a social product where you can look somebody in the eye and you can say, oh, if you gain a follower on here, your follower is going to see what you post. You cannot look them in the eye and say that, because it goes through an algo first. And you have the ability to stand out and be a social platform that bucks that trend that everybody doesn't like. Everybody agrees it's a bad trend, but we're not doing it.
Except
It's well said, Ken.
We're not doing it tomorrow, but it is something that we're playing with in the home feed. I think it's a worthy experiment to run among the experiments that we are running.
Yeah, no, I know. And I do want to make clear that the new management here is much better. I'm a huge fan of the changes that have happened with the new management. Y'all are, you care a lot more about the community, in my opinion. And I get that and I feel that, right? But yeah, for me, it's just, I continue to drum this because I view myself as just a passenger on this ship with all y'all. And I've seen this leak in the boat for a very long time. I've watched it be a leak. I've yelled about it being a leak. I've watched it sink us and sink us and sink us for years, and continue to hear like, oh yeah, we're going to fix that at some point. Don't worry. So I got it. I'm going to be a squeaky wheel about it because I continue to think that's the primary problem. This was a great place for talking to people, talking to humans, talking to other people that enjoy talking about crypto and tech and AI when you really can't have those conversations anywhere else. Twitter is not a conversational platform anymore.
Right.
Twitter is a media platform because that's what Nikita Beer wants it to be. He wants it to be a place to watch slop videos. Okay. So they have ceded that territory. There's one other social network where you can talk to real people. That's Reddit. That also happens to be the social network that is growing better than any other social network right now. Reddit gets more traffic, gets more users, etc., than any other social network out there. It is the one that is growing. It is the model. And what does it have going for it? You can actually talk to real humans and have deep conversations on there, and those conversations get visibility. Fix that problem on Farcaster, and many good things start to grow again.
100%. And I would point out that me telling this to you, Kenny, is exactly what we're also saying with Cassie, is that like we want to do all of these things. We just literally can't do it right now.
Yeah.
Why not just use Reddit?
And that's not a fun
Because
thing to be the
Yeah.
person that has to say that.
Yeah.
But
The one thing I will say, though, the prioritization has been, you are prioritizing doing tests on the algo feed. Like I've talked to Rish. You know, if Rish wanted to say, hey, we're going to get rid of the algo feed and we're just going to return to a pure chrono, you guys could do that. Instead, the priority has been doing tests within the home feed, right?
the external priority.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Like that's
Internally, we are doing more tests than that, though.
And I it's also something that I think really doesn't work well with A/B testing, right? It's like a product philosophy thing.
No.
Frankly,
Yeah,
there
you have
are
to turn it on or turn it off.
Yeah, frankly, like you either have a chrono feed where everybody sees what's happening, everybody's forced into this room, or you don't. You can't really have the algo or not have the algo, right? So it's you got to make that decision versus saying, hey, we're just going to test, we're going to look at the numbers and see. Frankly, there's not enough users on the platform too to properly test. Like there's
Right.
just not. So you know, you need somebody that's going to take a bold product decision and say, every other social media network, they optimize for algos. We think they've gone too far. We're going to bring social back to what people expected. I think Garrett posted a great graph the other day where a decade ago, people went on social to post and to discuss with other people. And it has regressed to the point where now majority of people are just on there to follow celebrities and to get entertainment. Right now, maybe that's the future. That is what social is generally going to be. Like that is what most people want. Right. But there are still people out there who want to connect with other people on the internet. And so I think you just have this glaring opportunity and it can be prioritized. I've seen spaces rolled out in the course of a month. Spaces, yeah, that's a heavy development lift. They were rolled out.
It is, and I would argue that spaces would go over better than a cron feed, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yep. And so I get it. Like that was a bold product decision to do that. So that's my point, to say that like you can't just say it's not possible to do, because other things are being done. It's possible. Just nobody on the
I'm not at all saying that it's not possible. It is purely prioritization.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think that the more, I said this in the State of the Union as well, like the more people are vocal about those things on the network, and we can gauge, where the support for that is. Right now, it's Kenny wants a cron feed, not 58% of the users want a cron feed. And that might be true. We just, don't have a way to gauge that right now.
I mean, I think I've gotten a good amount of support beyond just me, but that's up to you guys to figure out.
And maybe that's on us for not seeing it, right? But and that's what I'm saying about being more vocal in community. And like I do think that these spaces are valuable in that, where like it's on my list continuously of features to talk about, and it's just the prioritization and having to pick and choose because our team isn't very big.
Yeah, I will say, frankly, I did have a DM with Rish where it was basically like, we're not going to do that. So
How long ago was that?
like a week and a half ago.
I think it's changed since then.
Yeah. I'm just, it's
To be
like,
fair.
that is the communication.
Well, and also,
we tried to do it, it didn't work.
I will also say that I think it's unlikely that we will get an all cron feed product. But if that happens, there will be like a home algorithmic feed and a following cron feed.
Yeah, which is.
But it won't switch to just purely a cron feed unless we add that cron feed and it goes over super well. And that's exactly the experiment that we're talking about.
Isn't a cron feed exactly what the following column is, or am I misunderstanding what we're talking about?
Yeah, the point of it more is that you used to be able, the following feed, you would see deep conversations that would get surfaced, right? The following feed, you only see replies to a top level post. So if you respond to somebody and somebody responds to you, that never makes it into a following feed. So the point is, there are deep conversations that happen on Farcaster and nobody ever sees them. And
Sure, but what's the cutoff for that? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like, I worked for Nanar. Haha, get it? Anyways, like, what if there's like a 20 fucking reply thread? You know, would you be scrolling to see every single thing, or because I get the top reply, and you worked really hard to get reply bumping, that was your thing. But what if there's a big long drag out thread where it's just people replying and replying? What's the cutoff for that in the UX? Because I just imagine I'm on my phone and I'm on a feed and I just scroll and I see just I feel like I'm scrolling through a chat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's part of it. You want it to be a more real-time social experience. But basically, you use the same UX that you had pre-February 2024. It was implemented. And it wasn't, basically, you do not bump in 20 chats, right? You concatenate things a little bit, right? You crush it down. You somehow give some context of who the person's replying to. You let people expand. Now, check out Twitter's following feed, and you can see it because that's what they do. When somebody I follow on Twitter responds to somebody and it's 5 threads deep, I still see that. And you can see that the way they make it so you can click in there and expand the conversation seamlessly. So it used to be done. I don't know when were you browsing Farcaster the most? When did you join again?
Either late 22 or late 23, one of those two.
Okay, yeah. So you remembered.
Yeah.
That's not the feed. The feed was literally just a chronological feed, and if somebody you were following replied to another person, it would get bumped into the feed. And that was it. There was no algo for a very, very, very long time. The people that love this place are literally the people who got onboarded with that feed. But everybody likes to sit here and be like, oh, what if we switch to it? Nobody would like it. It's the stickiest users onboarded with that feed.
I also remember channels being great. You will go into a channel and you will see the whole, you had the feature to pin a cast to the channel, even 3 pins, and then you can see this. It was great at the time, channels, I remember. And then they added gate listing for channels. Yeah, it was great. I remember that. But I don't know what happened with channels. They just disappeared into the shadows, or I don't remember well. What happened?
The way it all worked was February 2024, we had that flood of users came in, and people started complaining about how noisy things felt, right? So the decision was made that you can't have, and people were tipping degen. And so there's all these people that were mad about the fact that they had to look at degen tips. It was so hard for them to look at degen tips. And
Yeah, it's like, oh no, this person's making money because he had
Yeah.
a banger. Fuck.
yeah, no. So everybody's like, oh, like why? Like this reply bumping is so annoying, right? And so we have to hide this. And so the decision was made to collapse everything to just algo, so you only ever saw top level posts. And it was done first off, they were like, oh, we're making this change in channels. But when they made the change in channels, they also changed it in the home feed. They didn't really bring that up, but that's what happened. Right. So it was no longer chronological anywhere. And you just got an algo feed in all channels of Farcaster all the time. And if you were somebody who had built up a following, you were no longer able to just post and trust that your post would make it to your followers. You had to post and hope that the algo would like what you posted.
Weird, right? Weird. Okay.
And also suddenly we did a whole data analysis on this too. Paid for it, raised the money on Poid. So 11 people crowdfunded $300 to do this data analysis. It collapsed the comment diversity of threads. So you used to often have threads that went deep and had 3, 4, 5 different FIDs interacting and commenting with each other. And suddenly that dropped off a cliff to the point where it was generally just 2 people in long threads going back and forth. Why did that happen? Because their followers no longer saw their replies to each other. That never got brought into people's feeds. So everything became isolated.
And is that investigation is somewhere, like it's in a link or somewhere?
Yeah, I'll post in the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's a philosophical design decision, because if you give people the algo feed, people will choose that. It's like giving people decisions between eating spinach or eating candy. They're going to choose the candy. All right. Is what it is. Like algo feeds they're great for the dopamine receptors. Yeah. I mean, some people will choose the following feed, but most people are going to choose the algo feed. And so what happens when you do that is that it's just this down level impact on your social network where there's less people browsing that real-time feed and browsing for real-time conversations because they're stuck just consuming content and they don't feel like they'll get rewarded for posting.
So, question, just to clarify, you think that having both, people wouldn't use the cron feed?
I mean, that's the case right now. Do you know what's the data breakdown of how many people choose to use the following feed as their default?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like 10%.
Or less, maybe even less.
I would guess that it's closer to 50-50.
Oh, there's no way it's 50-50.
I'm one of them.
So am I.
Hell yeah.
But wait.
So maybe that's, cognitive dissonance.
But Emma, for example, X recently published their algorithm. Has Neynar thought about publishing the algorithm for Farcaster so it's more open?
I don't know that we have, but not for any reason.
Yeah, I have seen. Yeah, I have seen in other platforms.
You publish the algorithm, it just opens it up to gaming it. Yeah, exactly.
That's really the only reason that any of these are gated. Like that was the original problem with open sourcing the client, was when Dan had said we would open source the client, and then they added a wallet, and then they didn't want to open source the wallet, for better or for worse.
Well, anyways, I've said my piece, so I had to hop on. Thank you for offering the space for conversation and accepting.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Gracefully. Love all y'all. And I just want to see the app thrive. Everything comes from a place of love.
Yeah. I say that too. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Cassandra.
And keep talking about it on the feed.
Yeah.
And tag me if I don't see it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if I end the space, if it's going to end for everyone, but we're going to find out.
There's only one way to find out.
If people want to hop onto spaces, then I'm happy to go listen in again.